actually don't know as much about the Essenes as we would like to. But we do know from Josephus that there was a group of Essenes in about the time of Jesus who were against animal sacrifice and who shared everything in common and tried to live simply. And they lived out in the desert, they away from other people. These people seem to be very much both like the early Christians, who lived communally, and also like Pythagoreans. The Pythagoreanism was an earlier movement. It started in maybe 5 centuries before Jesus. Pythagoras, who's sort of a legendary figure, but does seem to have some historical basis to it. Pythagoras also was vegetarian, and that's clear. And he was also against animal sacrifice. He was against slavery. He thought that women should be equal to men, and so forth. So he had some very progressive ideas. And Pythagoreanism didn't get too far at first. Pythagoras apparently tried to establish a little society in his part of Italy, which is where he was living at the time. And but he was chased out. The people of the upper class didn't like him, and so they chased him out. And he went off to just preach to his little group of disciples since then. But then in about 1 century before Jesus, Pythagoreanism sort of came back. There's the so-called Neo-Pythagoreans. Neo implying new. And of course, it's old to us because, it's centuries ago. But at the time, this was a new group of Pythagoreans who were reviving the ideas of Pythagoras who had come 5 centuries earlier. They also were against slavery, against animal sacrifice, were vegetarian, and so forth. They had the same general characteristics. So we think that the Essenes and the Pythagoreans are related. In fact, we think that the Essenes were a group of Jewish Pythagoreans, as Charles Waslavic points out in his book. So the Pythagoreans and the Essenes were probably related. Now, there's some other Essenes groups as well. There's the Qumran Essenes, who I don't think are connected. There are different group of Essenes that I think are different. In fact, some people dispute whether the Qumran group, this is the Dead Sea Scrolls. You've heard of the Dead Sea Scrolls that were discovered in 1947. It was a great discovery for understanding the ancient world, but they don't seem to have any connection with this group of Essenes. They were either a very different group of Essenes, or some people would argue maybe not Essenes at all. So, but in any event, these views seem to also be coming into Christianity, into early primitive Christianity, as was practiced by the Nazareans, and then later by the Ebionites, the Jewish Christian Ebionites that we know of from the church descriptions of the church fathers that existed in the second, third, and fourth centuries, who also seemed to be against animal sacrifice, were vegetarian, and so forth. So we think that there's a continuous line of influence. We don't know exactly what it is. If these people were traveling together, they may not have been exact spiritual descendants of the Essenes, but they were certainly related, and they were talking about the same kinds of things.